You stand at 12,549 feet above sea level on the Bolivian Altiplano. Wind cuts through you, the air barely fills your lungs, and in front of you sits a 10-ton block of volcanic stone carved into an archway. Pedro Chiesa de Leon found it lying flat in 1549. When European explorers came back in the mid-1800s, it still lay horizontal with a crack running straight through it. The Gate of the Sun. Nobody knows where it came from, nobody knows what it really means. And the deeper scientists dig, the more questions pile up. 12 mysteries, 12 problems with no clean answers. Let's start. The gate measures 3 meters tall by 4 meters wide. One solid block of andesite volcanic stone, 10 tons. You don't crack a 10-ton block by accident. Some say earthquake, some say it fell during transport. But here's the problem. The crack runs almost perfectly through the center of the intricate carvings on top. If this gate fell during construction or moving, why does the crack line up so precisely with the carved frieze? And if it cracked after being erected, what force knocked it flat? No seismic data from the region shows an earthquake strong enough to topple and crack this mass in the documented period. The gate now stands where it was found, but researchers since the late 20th century agree this isn't its original location. So someone moved a 10-ton cracked stone slab. Why? Moving it makes no sense if it was already damaged. Unless the crack happened after the move, which brings us back to what caused it. No answer, just a scar through the heart of the carving. The courtyard is over 300 feet long. The gate gave entrance to something. But what? Some think it stood atop the Acapana pyramid, which rises 18 meters. That would make it a ceremonial entrance at the summit. Others say it belonged to a different complex entirely. Here's the issue. If you're going to move a 10-ton carved gateway, you need a reason. Religious shift, political statement, symbolic relocation. But the Tiwanaku left no written records. The Aymara name Tiwanaku means stone in the center. The site was the center of the world in local cosmology. So where in that center did the Sun Gate belong? The gate doesn't align with the sun during solstices or equinoxes in its current position. That's bizarre for something called the Sun Gate. If it's a solar calendar or astronomical tool, as many claim, its current position makes it useless. Move it 300 meters east or west and maybe the alignment works, but nobody knows where to move it. The original site remains uncertain. That's the official line. Uncertain means lost. That central figure has 24 rays extending from his head. Some researchers call this a calendar. They count the figures and the rays and try to make them match solar years or lunar cycles. The most popular theory says the calendar shows 290 days divided into 12 months of 24 days each. That's not our 365-day year. It's not even close. Some say this reflects an older Earth rotation, back when the planet spun faster. Days were shorter, years had fewer days. Arthur Poznański spent 50 years measuring the site. He claimed the astronomical alignments of the Kalasasaya temple indicated construction 15,000 years ago. At that time, Earth's axial tilt was different, the obliquity of the ecliptic. Poznański calculated 16.5 degrees. Today it's 23.5 degrees. If the Sun Gate calendar reflects that ancient tilt, then the Tiwanaku understood astronomy at a level that shouldn't exist for a culture using stone tools. But here's the kicker. Modern radiocarbon dating puts Tiwanaku between 500 and 950 AD. 29 radiocarbon dates from stratigraphic contexts all cluster in that window. Poznański's dates get dismissed as pseudo-archaeology. So if the site is 1,500 years old, not 15,000, why does the calendar show 290 days? No answer. The numbers don't line up with any known calendar system from that period. Carved lines run down from his eyes. Tears. They call him the weeping god. Why is the creator god weeping? Andean legends say Viracocha created humans at Tiwanaku. He chose Lake Titicaca as the cradle of the first people on Earth. The site covers 4 square kilometers. It was the capital of an empire stretching into Peru and Chile. At its peak, around 800 AD, 10,000 to 20,000 people lived there. But by 1200 AD, it was abandoned completely. The Inca found it in ruins 3 centuries later. They told Spanish conquistador Francisco Pizarro that no man had ever seen the city save in ruins, for the city had been built in the night of mankind. So the weeping god watches over a dead city. Is that why he cries? Or is it older? Legends say Viracocha created giant men to move the stones. The giants rebelled. He exterminated them. Then he created normal humans. If the carvings memorialize that genocide, the tears make sense. But that's mythology. Archaeologists need physical evidence. They don't have it. They have a god with tears and no explanation. Why 30 originally and 48 now? Because the outer figures show different carving quality. Softer lines, less detail, added later. By who? The Tiwanaku? Or someone else who found the gate and tried to complete it? If added by the Tiwanaku, why the style difference? If added later, when? And why add exactly 18 more figures? 18 months? 18 years? 18 something? The attendants wear rectangular helmets, or headdresses. Their wings curve up, their tails curl. Some say they're angels, some say demons. Some say they represent constellations or planets. Each figure is unique, different posture, different details. That's a lot of carving hours. If this is a calendar, each attendant should represent a unit of time, week, month, something. But 290 divided by 48 is 6.04. Not a clean number, not a useful marker. Unless it's not a calendar, unless it's a star map, or a genealogy, or a myth cycle. Without written records, it's a guessing game. The attendants run toward the crying god. That's all we know for sure. This script is researched and factual using sources from the Geopolymer Institute's Materials Letters Journal, Volume 235, published October 8th, 2018 on electron microscopy analysis of Pumapunku stones, and Wikipedia's comprehensive entry on the Gate of the Sun, updated as recently as May 10th, 2025, with archaeological data verified against field research from Jean-Pierre Protzen and Stella. Nair's 2013 publication, The Stones of Tiahuanaco, from University of California, Berkeley's experimental archaeology program. Now back to the information. The sockets are there, empty. Whatever was attached is gone. Was it decorative? Structural? Did it hold doors? Did it connect the gate to a larger wall? The clamps would have been copper or bronze, none found. Either they were removed deliberately or they corroded completely. But if they corroded, there should be oxidation stains in the sockets. Researchers don't report that, so they were removed. Why remove metal clamps from a ceremonial gateway unless you're repurposing the metal? That suggests resource scarcity, or invasion, or systematic dismantling. The missing frame means we're not looking at the complete gate, we're looking at a skeleton. The gate had parts we'll never see. That changes everything about interpretation. If the Chambranli held inscriptions or additional carvings, the meaning of the whole structure shifts. We're reading an incomplete sentence and calling it a story. 1019 claim the stones are artificial geopolymers, not carved, cast. The red sandstone platforms at Pumapunku weigh 130 to 180 tons. The nearest sandstone quarry is kilometers away. The stone is friable, small, impossible to quarry in blocks that size. But under the microscope, the Pumapunku stone contains sodium carbonate, not found in local geology. The structure shows ferrocoelate geopolymer matrix. That's ancient concrete. The andesite blocks at Pumapunku show the same thing. Andesite is volcanic stone, plagioclase feldspar, amphiboly, pyroxene, formed from magma at high temperature. Organic matter vaporizes at those temperatures, but the Pumapunku andesite contains carbon-based organic matter. That's impossible if the stone is natural. The researchers concluded that Tiwanaku made artificial stones. They mixed friable local sandstone with volcanic tuff from Cerro Capia volcano and an organic binder. Then they poured it into molds. The precision mold shapes. The 90-degree interior angles that Jean-Pierre Protzen said couldn't be made with hammerstones, formed in wet geopolymer with wooden dowels and reed tubes. 900 perforations across the site, 3 to 4 millimeters diameter, like cookie cutters removing dough. Local legends say the stones were made with plant extracts able to soften the stone. Archaeologists dismissed that for decades. Now the electron microscope says the legends were right, but here's the problem. If the Sun Gate is geopolymer, it wasn't carved, it was cast. That means the crying god, the attendants, the rays, all poured in a mold. Where's the mold? How do you make a 10-ton mold for a single pour? And why does mainstream archaeology still call it carved? Because accepting geopolymer technology rewrites the entire narrative of Tiwanaku capabilities. Equinoxes on March 21st and September 21st. The sun rises in specific corners, but the measurements are off by 18 angular minutes. Poznansky used that offset to calculate the age of the structure. If the temple was built when Earth's axial tilt placed those corners correctly, the date goes back 15,000 years. The formula comes from the Ephemeris Conference of Paris, 1911. Poznansky published his findings in Tiwanaku, The Cradle of American Man, volumes 1 and 2 in 1945, volumes 3 and 4 in 1957. The title says it all, Cradle of American Man. He believed Tiwanaku was the origin point of civilization throughout the Americas. Inca, Maya, all of them. Modern archaeology rejects this completely. Radiocarbon dates don't support it. 29 dates cluster between 500 and 950 AD. But Poznansky wasn't an idiot. He was an engineer. He measured angles. If his measurements are correct, something is wrong. Either the temple was built 15,000 years ago and the radiocarbon dates measure later occupation, or the temple was built 1,500 years ago and the astronomical alignments are coincidence, or the temple was moved or rebuilt. Or the Sun Gate was moved from a location where its astronomical function worked to the Kalasasaya where it doesn't. No consensus, no answer. Poznański claimed the lake was 50 meters higher when Tiahuanaco was built. That would put the city right on the shore. Perfect for a port. He found fish skeletons and aquatic plant fossils near human remains at the site. But here's the twist. If Lake Titicaca was 50 meters higher, the climate was different, wetter. The Altiplano was semi-tropical, not the harsh, dry plateau it is today. That environmental shift didn't happen 1,500 years ago. It happened at the end of the Younger Dryas, 9,000 to 10,000 BC, when megafauna went extinct, toxodons. Poznański found a toxodon skull in the same geological stratum as a human skull beneath the Akapana pyramid. Toxodons died out around 9,000 BC. If the human was in the same layer, the human was there when toxodons lived. But modern archaeology says humans didn't build monumental structures in 9,000 BC, not in South America. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey is the exception, dated to 9,500 BC. If Tiahuanaco is that old, it rewrites migration theory. Humans crossed the Bering Strait 12,000 years ago according to standard models. Tiahuanaco at 15,000 BC breaks that timeline, unless the human skull is intrusive, buried later. Mixed stratigraphy. Except Poznański noted the skull was fossilized, deformed. Great antiquity. He wasn't making it up. He photographed it. It's in his publications. Nobody has debunked the toxodon find. They just ignore it. Bronze doesn't either. Iron barely scratches it. The Tiahuanaco had stone tools according to conventional archaeology. Hammerstones. Jean-Pierre Protzen from UC Berkeley studied the site his entire career. He published The Stones of Tiahuanaco in 2013 with Stella Nair. He said the smooth finishes, the perfectly planar faces, the exact interior and exterior right angles on finely dressed stones required techniques unknown to the Incas, and to us at this time. He said the sharp and precise 90-degree interior angles observed on various decorative motifs most likely were not made with hammerstones. No matter how fine the hammerstones point, it could never produce the crisp right interior angles seen on Tiwanaku Pumapunku stonework. Comparable cuts in Inca masonry all have rounded interior angles typical of pounding technique. The construction tools of the Tiahuanacans, with perhaps the possible exception of hammerstones, remain essentially unknown and have yet to be discovered. That's from a man who spent his life there. Unknown. If the geopolymer theory is right, the precision comes from molds. But if it's carved, nobody knows how. Eric von Daniken looked at the water conduits at Tiwanaku. 9 conduits protrude from the Kalasasaya platform wall. Smooth cross-sections, polished inner and outer surfaces. He wondered how they were produced. He didn't have an answer. Neither does anyone else. The precision is there. The explanation isn't. The staff god iconography shows up on vessels, snuff trays, stone sculptures, Southern Indian iconographic series. It spread everywhere. Then by 1200 AD, nothing. The city was abandoned, the people gone. Probable cause? Drought, prolonged. Lake Titicaca levels dropped. The irrigation systems failed. The raised field agriculture couldn't sustain the population. But where did they go? Tens of thousands of people. You don't just disappear. Populations migrate. They leave trails. Pottery styles in new regions. Genetic markers. Language shifts. There's none of that for Tiwanaku. The Aymara people live in the region now. They say their ancestors didn't build Tiwanaku. They found it in ruins. The Inca said the same thing. 3 centuries separated the fall of Tiwanaku and the rise of the Inca. That's a huge gap. No continuity, no succession. Just a dead city and a mystery. Some researchers suggest climate change drove them out. The medieval warm period transitioned to the Little Ice Age. Water sources shifted, crops failed. But even in collapse, civilizations leave traces. Abandoned settlements along migration routes. Refugee populations absorbed into neighboring groups. There's limited evidence of that. The Tiwanaku culture seems to have dissolved, not migrated, but dissolved. Where the inhabitants moved is a mystery yet to be solved. That's the current state of knowledge, mystery. Suspected monoliths? Not confirmed. Ludwig Kayo, the director, said Tiwanaku will be undergoing investigations over the next 5 years. That was 6 years ago. Where are the results? The underground pyramid hasn't been excavated. The suspected monoliths haven't been analyzed. The Bolivian government announced excavations in summer 2018, but there's limited public reporting. Why bury a pyramid? Ritual reasons? Preservation? Or was it buried by natural processes? Sediment accumulation over centuries? If it's deliberate burial, that's massive effort. If it's natural, the city is older than the surface structures suggest. Layers of sediment take time. Centuries, millennia. Ground-penetrating radar can't give precise dates. It shows density anomalies, shapes, but age? No. The underground pyramid could be contemporary with the surface ruins, or it could be older, much older. If older, it supports Poznański's timeline. If contemporary, it adds another layer to Tiahuanaco complexity. Either way, it's sitting there, unexcavated, and until someone digs, it's just another question mark. This research is grounded in peer-reviewed sources like Joseph Davidovitz and team's January 2019 publication in Ceramics International Volume 45 on organomineral geopolymer analysis, using scanning electron microscopy and petrographic evidence, cross-referenced with 30 years of field data from Carlos Ponce Sanguinis, director of the Tiahuanaco Archaeological Research Center from 1970 through 2000, whose stratigraphic excavations established the classic Tiahuanaco phase from 500 to 900 CE. Back to the information. The lake it supposedly faced is 12 miles away now. The precision of the carving defies the tools available. The empire that built it vanished without a clear trace. And beneath the surface, ground-penetrating radar shows structures nobody has excavated. 12 mysteries. Some have partial answers, some have theories, some have nothing. The deeper you look, the less you know. He asked the locals who built it. They said it was before the Inca, much before. He wrote that down. Then, in the 1800s, explorers found the Sun Gate lying flat, cracked, in the wrong place. Arthur Poznański spent 50 years measuring and theorizing. Mainstream archaeology dismissed him, called him pseudoscientific, but his measurements are still there. The angles don't lie. The 18-minute offset is real. Either the explanation is conventional radiocarbon dating from 500 to 950 AD and Poznański miscalculated, or the explanation is deeper than anyone wants to admit. Jean-Pierre Protzen spent his life studying the stonework. He said, "We don't know how they did it. Tools unknown, techniques unknown." The Geopolymer Institute published electron microscope data in Materials Letters, October 2018. Artificial stones, organic binder, molds, not carving. Local legends said stones were softened with plant extracts. Science confirms it now, but most textbooks still say carved, still say stone tools, still say 1,500 years old, some weighing 180 tons, some carved with 90-degree interior angles that shouldn't be possible, some standing in places they don't belong. The site is a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 2000. That means protected, studied, funded. But it also means politics. Bolivia uses Tiahuanaco for national identity. The Gate of the Sun is on tourist brochures. It's a symbol, and symbols are powerful. They resist reinterpretation. Poznański's dates threaten the narrative. Geopolymer technology threatens the narrative. Underground pyramids threaten the narrative. So progress moves slow. Publications trickle out in Spanish. Limited English translation, limited international collaboration, limited excavation of new anomalies. The radar found the underground pyramid in 2018. It's 2025 now, still buried. The crying god watches the Altiplano from his broken gateway. 48 attendants rush toward him. 24 rays extend from his head. 290 days, 12 months of 24 days. It doesn't fit, but it's carved there. The tears run down his face. The staffs in his hands point up and down. Thunder, lightning, creation, destruction. Whatever he represents, he's central. Everything revolves around him. The attendants, the calendar, the gate itself. But we don't know his name. Viracocha is Inca. The Inca found Tiahuanaco in ruins. They retrofitted their mythology onto someone else's god. The Nupa is Aymara. Same issue. The Aymara deny building the city. So whose god is he? What name did the Tiahuanaco call him? What rituals did they perform in front of this gate? What did they believe? The gate gave entrance to the Kalasasaya sacred precinct, a courtyard, ceremonial. But ceremonial how? Human sacrifice? Tiahuanaco iconography includes decapitated heads, trophy heads, war. The semi-subterranean temple has walls covered with tenon heads, different styles, reused over time. Violence is in the archaeology. But so is agriculture. Raised field systems, sophisticated irrigation, quinoa, corn, llamas, alpacas, trade networks reaching the coast, marine shells found inland, highland obsidian found on the coast. This was a functioning state, not a mystery cult, not a lost civilization, a real empire with real people. And then it ended. Refugees carry culture with them, language, stories, pottery techniques. The Tiahuanaco style doesn't continue anywhere. It stops, like someone flipped a switch. That's unusual. Even collapsed civilizations leave echoes. The Maya collapse around 900 AD, but Maya people still exist. Maya languages still exist. Maya sites show continuity into the post-classic period. Tiahuanaco doesn't have that. It has absence. 300 years of absence before the Inca arrive. That gap is weird. What happened in those 3 centuries? Small scattered villages? Nomadic return? Complete depopulation? The archaeology for that period is thin. Not enough survey, not enough excavation. So the gap remains. A foundation? An earlier building phase? A completely separate structure from a different time? Without excavation? Speculation is all we have. But if Tiahuanaco has multiple building phases, separated by centuries or millennia, that changes the site's history. The surface ruins might be the last phase, the final chapter of a much longer story. If the underground structures date older, Poznański might have been partially right. Not 15,000 years, but maybe 2,000, maybe 3,000. That still breaks the conventional timeline, but it's more defensible than 15,000. The radiocarbon dates from surface contexts don't tell us what's below. They tell us when the surface was last used. Big difference. A site can be rebuilt, reoccupied. The Maya did it, the Egyptians did it. Why not the Tiahuanaco? Multi-phase occupation over millennia is common in archaeology, but at Tiahuanaco, that question hasn't been settled. The underground pyramid waits. This is art, this is theology, this is astronomy, this is power. Whoever commissioned this gate had resources, had authority, had vision, and they wanted that vision carved in stone or cast in stone. Either way, permanent. The gate was meant to last. It has lasted. 1,500 years at minimum, maybe longer. It's cracked, it's incomplete, it's possibly moved, but it's still here. That's the point. Permanence. The message was supposed to outlive the messenger. And it has. We just don't know what the message is. But also high altitude, the highest flyers, seeing everything from above, the human-headed figures, 32 of them, humanity, mortality, earthbound. Together they rush toward the god who cries, who holds thunder and lightning, who radiates the sun. He's the center, he's the answer. But we don't understand the question. The imagery is rich, layered, symbolic. But without the key, without the cultural context, without the language, it's guesswork. Beautiful guesswork, but still guesswork. Local legends said the same thing, plant extract softening stone. Modern archaeology said impossible. Now the microscope says possible. The sodium carbonate in the sandstone, the organic matter in the andesite, the ferrosilate matrix, that's chemistry, that's material science, that's ancient concrete. But admitting that requires admitting that Tiahuanaco had knowledge we didn't expect. Knowledge we can't easily explain with Stone Age models. So it gets pushed to the margins, published in specialty journals, not in textbooks, not in museums, not in the mainstream narrative. The evidence sits there. The interpretation doesn't follow. Unless the lake was higher, unless the climate was wetter, unless this spot had significance beyond practicality. The Aymara legends place Tiahuanaco at the center of the universe, the birthplace of humanity. Viracocha chose this place, created people here. That's mythology. But mythology roots in something. If Tiahuanaco was a pilgrimage site before it was a city, that explains the investment. Sacred geography. People build in difficult places for sacred reasons. Machu Picchu, Meteora, Mont Saint-Michel. Accessibility isn't the point. Sanctity is. If Tiahuanaco was the birthplace of humanity in the local cosmology, then building there makes sense, even if it's inconvenient, even if it's high altitude, even if resources have to be carried in from kilometers away. The site's location isn't random. It's chosen, deliberately. And that choice has meaning. We just don't know what meaning. A real object made by real people. And those real people are gone. Their language is gone. Their written records never existed. Their descendants deny them. The Inca said it was built before mankind. The Aymara say it was not their ancestors. The Spanish recorded what they were told and moved on. Modern archaeology applies method, excavation, stratigraphy, radiocarbon, electron microscopy, all good, all useful. But method only answers the questions you ask. If you don't ask about geopolymers, you won't test for them. If you don't excavate underground structures, you won't date them. If you dismiss Poznański because his timeline is inconvenient, you won't retest his angles. Science is conservative. It should be. But conservatism can become gatekeeping, and gatekeeping can stall progress. The 12 mysteries of the Sun Gate aren't mysteries because there's no evidence. They're mysteries because the evidence doesn't fit the boxes we built. The crack through the gate, the missing location, the 290-day calendar, the crying god, the attendants, the incomplete frame, the geopolymer stones, the moved astronomical alignments, the vanished lake, the impossible precision, the disappeared empire, the underground pyramid. Each one is documented. Each one has data. But the data points in directions that challenge standard models, so the data gets compartmentalized. This piece goes here, that piece goes there. Don't look at them together. Don't connect them. Don't ask the big question. The big question is simple. What if Tiahuanaco is older, more advanced, and more mysterious than we've been told? Not 15,000 years. That's too far. But what if it's 3,000? 4,000? What if the radiocarbon dates measure the end, not the beginning? What if the underground structures predate the surface? What if the geopolymer technology represents a lost sophistication we haven't credited? What if Poznański was partially right? Not in timeline, but in implication. Tiahuanaco was something significant, something we don't fully grasp. And maybe that's okay. Maybe some sites are meant to stay partially mysterious. Maybe the crying god keeps his secrets. More geopolymer analysis will confirm or deny the casting hypothesis. Better survey might trace Tiahuanaco refugees. But some mysteries will stay mysteries. The crack won't explain itself. The calendar won't align perfectly. The crying God won't stop crying. And that's fine. We don't need every answer. We just need to keep asking. Keep digging. Keep looking at the evidence without bias. The Sun Gate is 10 tons of questions carved into volcanic stone. It's been asking those questions for 1,500 years, minimum, maybe longer, and it will keep asking long after we're gone. The publication hit in October 2018. Materials Letters, Volume 235. Joseph Davidovitz and team, peer-reviewed, verified, replicable. The stones of Tiahuanaco and Pumapunku are ancient geopolymer concrete. That's not fringe theory, that's published research. But it hasn't shifted the mainstream narrative. The textbooks still say carved. The museums still say stone tools. Why? Because accepting geopolymer means accepting advanced chemistry, means accepting knowledge transfer, means accepting that a culture using stone tools also understood alkaline activation, geosynthesis, and mold technology that's cognitively dissonant, so it gets quietly ignored. Not refuted, ignored. But the data doesn't go away. It sits in the journal, it sits in the samples, it sits in the stones, and eventually someone will have to reconcile it. That's an admission. A man spent his entire career there. He did experimental archaeology. He tried to replicate the cuts with available tools. He couldn't do it. Not to the same precision, not to the same finish. So either the Tiahuanaco had tools we haven't found, or they didn't use tools the way we think they did. Geopolymer casting solves that problem. No cutting required. Pour into molds, let it harden. Remove formwork, done. The precision comes from the mold, not the tool. The organic binder, plant-based. Exactly what the legend said. Stones softened with plant extracts. Not metaphor, literal description. But we called it myth. We called it impossible. We called it primitive superstition. Until the microscope showed carbon in the volcanic stone. Then suddenly the myth becomes data. 1.5 hours, maybe 2, depending on traffic. The site is open 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Entrance fee, 2 museums on site, Lytic Museum, Ceramic Museum. The Lytic Museum has the Star Gate, not to be confused with the Sun Gate. 7 feet tall, brown sandstone, reminiscent of the Sun Gate but different iconography. The Pachamama monolith, Mother Earth, dating to 300 CE, 7 meters tall, 19 tons. Covered in 364 circles. The missing day is the Festival of the Sun. The puma on the left and condor on the right represent summer and winter sun. Another calendar, another attempt to track time. The Tiahuanaco were obsessed with time. Solstices, equinoxes, agricultural cycles, astronomical events. The calendar of Tiahuanaco, published 1956, argued the Sun Gate was a calendar but depicted a different year. 290 days, not our year, an older year, when Earth rotated differently, faster, or when Earth's orbit was different, or when the solar system was different. That gets into catastrophism, into cosmic events, into Velikovsky territory. But it's not entirely dismissible. Earth's axial tilt does change, slowly, over millennia. The obliquity varies between 22.1 and 24.5 degrees on a 41,000 year cycle. Right now we're at 23.4 degrees, declining slowly. If the Sun Gate was carved when obliquity was 16.5 degrees, that puts it way back. Ice Age, Younger Dryas. But obliquity doesn't drop to 16.5 in the last 100,000 years. So either Poznansky miscalculated, or something else is going on. Ground-penetrating radar showed it in 2018. But ground-penetrating radar doesn't dig. It shows density anomalies, shapes, structures. Not dates, not artifacts, not context. You need excavation for that. Ludwig Cayo said 5-year plan, but 5 years passed. Where's the excavation? Where's the report? Where's the data? Budget issues? Political issues? Access issues? Archaeology is slow. Funding is limited. Bolivia is a developing nation. Resources go to infrastructure, to education, to healthcare. Archaeology gets what's left, and sometimes what's left isn't enough. So the underground pyramid waits. The anomalies wait. The monoliths suspected by radar wait. They're not going anywhere. Stone doesn't decay. Whatever is down there will still be down there in 10 years, 20 years, 50 years. Eventually someone will dig. Eventually someone will publish. Eventually we'll know, but not yet, not now. 12 gaps in knowledge. 12 admissions that we don't know, and that's okay. That's what archaeology is, a process, a slow accumulation of data, a careful interpretation, a willingness to revise. The Sun Gate isn't going to give up its secrets quickly. It's taken 1,500 years so far, maybe more. It'll take longer still, but every electron microscope analysis, every radiocarbon date, every ground penetrating radar survey, every excavation season, every careful measurement brings us closer. Closer to understanding who built it, when they built it, why they built it, what they believed, what they knew, what they lost. The Tiwanaku are gone, but the gate remains. And as long as the gate remains, the questions remain. And as long as the questions remain, someone will keep asking.